Well, welcome. I probably should have my name up there, but my name is Duane Baker, and I'm delighted to be here today with you. And I'm not sure how clear the description was. I don't know why you're here today. Well, I'll take a shot. I want to take a shot at what I thought we were going to talk about today and see if that's what you thought you were signing up for. Actually, before I jump into that, I just wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself and kind of my background and hi, Kathy, that kind of thing. But let's see, how far back should I go letting you know who I am? I'm a former high school teacher. I did that for a while, and social studies, was a high school social studies teacher, and then I was a high school vice principal. I was an executive director of the CIA for a short period of time, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, so I did that. I really liked doing that. I was assistant superintendent up in Monroe and was enjoying that job, and back in 2000, got the opportunity to start doing some evaluation work with the Gates Foundation, got hired as a lead evaluator with them. And they were looking at the effective schools and effective districts and effective state groups and that kind of thing. And so started actually, I left my job in Monroe as assistant superintendent and started the Burke group, which was just me. I thought I was just being very optimistic about it becoming a group someday, I guess. And so the Burke group, hi, I'm Duane, I'm the Burke group. So Baker Evaluation, Research, and Consulting. And so over the last 12 years, we've been doing a lot of work across the country. Most of it has been around program level evaluation. And of course, we do a lot of research projects, a little bit like what we're going to be presenting today. But we've been in sort of a unique situation where we're studying effective districts, effective schools, and effective classrooms for the last 10 years specifically. And this project today comes out of that. Since 2004, we've conducted almost 25,000 classroom observations in Washington State. We've conducted about 28,000, or just over 28,000, so almost 30,000 elsewhere. We collected in some other places as well. And so the focus of what we're looking at today is looking at what we've seen related to classroom observations, because I know that you know this. This whole idea of classroom observations is going to become even a bigger deal, right? With all the whole teacher evaluation system and all those kinds of things. So what we have set out to do in this study is to say, well, we've been out there, we've been doing a lot of classroom observations, and we're actually looking for the exact same things that are in Danielson, Marzano, and 5D at the indicator level. It's the exact same things. And so we can actually predict next year and the year after what number of students, what percentage of teachers will actually be at each one of the levels of distinguished, proficient, basic, and unsatisfactory. And so as we get into that, there's the knowledge behind that, and then there's the emotion around that, and all those kinds of things. So the goal of this session is to kind of go over those data and let you have a chance to chat with each other a little bit about trying to make some sense of it for yourself and that kind of thing. So. Now, with that in mind, want to make a clarification on a couple of things. Now, the state called the Marzano 5D and I don't know, I keep on, Danielson, Marzano, and 5D instructional frameworks. You need to pick an instructional framework. And I'm not going to get into all the details on that, but the interesting thing about that is there's a couple of things wrong with actually calling them instructional frameworks. One is that they're not instructional frameworks. So that's just a little glitch. But anyway. The other thing is you actually do need an instructional framework, and you're going to see this as you dive in. So I just want to make a quick distinction between why I would say that they're not instructional frameworks. They certainly contain instruction, but they're way bigger than an instructional framework. And so just kind of a rhetorical question, what is the difference between evaluating a teacher and evaluating teaching? Okay, so I just want to lay this out here because this term is one that I'm going to use to help us move forward on it. Is if you think about evaluating a teacher, and this is really clear in all the 8 categories and all of the components and all of the elements that you're digging through. A great teacher is made up of a lot of characteristics, and not all of them are instruction. Does that make sense? They're not all instruction. Okay? So in fact, implementing the curriculum isn't instruction, it's curriculum. Instructional practices would be instruction. Assessment practices aren't even instruction. You assess for instruction, it's assessment of instruction, it's assessment for instruction, but assessment is actually assessment. You use it in instruction, but it's actually assessment. Reflection on instructional practices, which is called for in this evaluation system, is not instruction. It's reflecting on instruction. Does that make sense, all those things? And then in addition to that, you've got professional collaboration. Well, of course, that's something that a great teacher does, but that's not instruction. Now, you might collaborate around instruction, which I hope that people do, but that's not instruction. And communicating with parents is not instruction. Okay, so all the things in these frameworks, I'm just suggesting that it helps us avoid some confusion on it if we say these are actually professional practices frameworks. These actually define everything about our professional practices, right? So it actually becomes confusing by calling it an instructional framework, but there is instruction in it. Now, I know a lot of times at this point, this kind of can represent where everybody's at, but we'll just kind of move on from there. Deer in the headlights. This is by far my favorite slide that I have. Okay, so, because I do this presentation quite a bit with that slide. It's like, I'm traumatized by this. Okay, so now, yeah, actually, all of this is doable if you can make sense of it in your own brains as leaders of this thing, because it makes sense that the evaluation is happening. It makes sense of where this thing is going. And now this is what's really important. Okay, I'm just going to say a couple things about it, but we heard a lot of people say things like, well, we've adopted Danielson, so I guess we're not going to be doing GLAD anymore. We just adopted GLAD. Is the district switching their focus? I thought we were doing the objective on the board, and now we're doing Danielson, or it's like nobody can make up their mind. And so the idea behind this is there are actually, there's more than this, I'm sure, but for us, the way we think about it in the Burke group is 4 layers of instruction. There's 4 layers that apply to instruction. And one is your professional practices framework that actually drives all of your growth. And this is where your Danielson, this is where you're going to decide Danielson, Marzano, or 5D, right? And everybody's decided that or getting close to that, right? Mostly? So now the next level, now once you read through it, you read the component and you read the indicators or whatever, the elements, and you dig down into it. At a certain point, after you get done with that, your brain says, okay, so what does that mean? What does that look like, right? That's what your instructional framework is. That's your language. That's how you interpret it. That's what it is for you. That's your district. And districts have to have an instructional framework. My concern is if you think that's it can't be. You'll have to create an operational definition for what those things mean before you can calibrate. To get trained on the calibration. Now there's some of them that are more obvious than others, and you'll pick up on it right in here. But a lot of them you have to actually operationally define for yourself. So there is something that's an instructional framework. It's made up of a bunch of instructional strategies. They're just in categories of some sort. There's no agenda, no order, no nothing. It's just how to think about it. The STAR framework, we use the STAR framework to look through this study. And then there's instructional models. GLAD, AVID, SIOP, GRR, 3 R's, tribes, etc. And then down here there's a whole bunch of instructional strategies. And the number of times we've interviewed teachers where all of a sudden they introduced a new book study on probing beyond correct responses or wait time or think, pair, share. And all of a sudden teachers are going, well, I guess we're changing our direction now. I guess we're doing something different, right? Because they're not making a connection between, it's actually all these things are about instruction. It's not that we were doing clear purpose. It's clear purpose was a part of GRR, which purpose comes right out of GRR and up through your framework and up to here. Okay, so in this, as we move forward on this thing, there's professional practices frameworks. We're looking at just instruction. We're going to use the STAR framework to do that. We're looking just at instruction. So just to put it out there, actually our study that we do here actually doesn't hit on all 8 categories of the evaluation because of that. The 2 that we're not going to be hitting on would be communicating with parents and student and school community and exhibiting collaborative and collegial practices. The other 6, so the study the data we're going to look at are the first 6. Those are actually things that you can observe in the classroom and they relate to instruction. Okay? So when we get at that, and I don't know, have all of you seen like the old and the new that's in your packet? Old 7, new 8, and that's actually interesting to look at in and of itself. All right, so here's our essential question, diving into it. How ready are teachers for the new teacher evaluation system around the constructs associated with instruction? So, and which are going to be the top 8, or I'm sorry, the top 6 out of 8. Okay, so the state evaluation system. Got a few slides in here to kind of walk and talk you through. I've said a couple of these things already. We'll give it our best shot. So there's 8 criteria, you know that. State provided minimal definitions organizing these around key words. Have you read that in the RCW? I mean, it's like criteria number 2, couple sentences, keyword, instruction, right? But the state did not operationally define instruction. This is really important. What they did was they said, you need to adopt a model, Danielson, Marzano, 5D, and those people have to make sure their models are aligned with each of those. So in your packets, you actually have all 3 of those models and how their components align to each one. Now these are available on TPEP website. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. How many of you have seen those? The state crosswalk, it's called At a Glance. So it's in there. It's actually it's sort of in the back, in this packet. And what it does is it aligns, you'll see that it says At a Glance. So it's Cell 5D At a Glance. So you can see that under purpose, connection to standards, broader purpose, and transferable skill, well, that's actually under criteria 1. So everybody took their model, all 3 authors took their models and said, this is how it fits into the state criteria. That all makes sense to us, right? But by doing that, they are operationally defining that criteria for us as a state. Because your job, if you're an evaluator, your job is actually to evaluate and click on the criteria level. You actually have to make a distinction. The thing you have to vote on and you have to click is the criteria. And that's what determines the teacher's status. Everything under that, all these components and those things, it's just language that helps you understand what it's all about in there. And it's defining it for you so you know what to click. But what really matters, you're going to click a bunch of other stuff, but the click that matters is on criteria 1. Criteria 2, criteria 3. You can click all the other things you want. Marzano on criteria 2 has 32 things to click. Danielson has 2. So that would cause a weighting issue if that's how things got calculated. Those are things for you to think about and to use to think about to create your common language so that when you click on criteria 2, it makes sense to you. But what really matters is criteria 2. Okay, a lot to that, and these keywords drive that. Each publisher they fit it. Together, the 3 publishers operationally define the criteria for the state. Now, what we did is we looked at all 3 of those, translated all 3 of them to the STAR framework, and then brought it back to the state criteria. We can actually, because they name the actual strategies by aligning to each one of the programs separately, and then seeing what they have in common. Operationally, that is what the state is now defining as that criteria. And you'll see those in just a little bit. So the 3 publishers all together are defining the criteria for the state. The evaluation models are research-based guidelines for educators to use when judging teacher performance within the 8 criteria. Professional practice frameworks define the number of program components under each state criteria. Publishers also operationally define the components and program elements. The number of components and elements under each of the state criteria are not consistent. Like I said, if you've got the Danielson model on the eval, you'll click on 2 boxes. If you got Marzano, you'll do at least 8, if not 32 boxes. So anyway, evaluators will consider the elements and judge the components, but it's all about the criteria. And so professional practices, instructional framework, and it's about the criteria are kind of some important takeaways on that section. So our interest with the state criteria with which teachers will be evaluated is, there's a 4-tiered system: unsatisfactory, basic, proficient, distinguished, which I'm sure you all know. And then given the operational definitions that are derived from the individual and consolidated composite evaluation forms, models, there is a way to predict how teachers will perform under the new evaluation system, especially when the language matches up perfectly. Okay? Let's see. I think we'll just jump to this one. I want to jump into the STAR. This is a STAR framework. The STAR is in there a bunch of ways. The STAR protocol, which is the professional development piece, is on the right-hand column, tucked away. This is the STAR framework, and it helps you understand what the different things are. There's also a STAR lesson planning guide, which is pretty and shiny. And then there's like a data collection form. Like when we've done these 25,000 observations, what were we looking at? So I wanted you to see all of it. This is the main one that I'm going to have you be referring back to here in just a minute. And what we've done, now that, again, with the observations we've done, when we've done factor analysis, exploratory factor analysis on all 15 items, the alpha the alpha score coming back on that is a 0.92, which means these 15 indicators are very much, it's an inner reliability of those 15 factors, which is amazing. It's really, really high. After 25,000, actually 28,50, over 28,000 classroom observations, our inner rate of reliability is 0.94 after double scoring every 10th observation for 8 years. It's like crazy. So what's interesting about that to me is it's so weird that you can actually read this language and you can actually, with a high degree of predictability and inner rate of reliability among observers, see the same thing. Okay, that was a long sentence. But basically, this happens to be written in a way that observers can actually see the same thing and score it with a high degree of reliability. It's pretty neat. So we're moving forward. Now the thing is because all 15 indicators are interrelated, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how you organize them. They're all part of one big construct. We just arbitrarily have organized them a couple of times. One time it was called TPEP, another time it was called the 4 R's. But we've organized it now around STAR because the state reform movement in 1993 said we should really be looking at skills of reading, writing, communicating to a variety of audiences. Anybody remember the 4 goals? Goal 2 was applying into content knowledge areas. Goal 3 was thinking at high levels using Bloom's taxonomy. Goal 4 was applying in a real world context. Remember those? Anyway, and then we had some leftovers that were under relationships. And so anyway, and we call it STAR because it's skills and or knowledge, thinking, application, relationships. And when people want to call us on this and say it should be SCATAR because you have knowledge in there, we like to point out that the K is silent. Even in the word knowledge, K is silent, so it's pretty good precedent. All right, so I think enough of all this. I've got a few more slides on this, but I just want to say this before we dive into the data. Limitations of this study. We didn't gather this data for this reason. We could. We actually think it would be an awesome thing to do in the future, like gather it for this reason. But one of the limitations is we have a sample of convenience. We conveniently had access to 25,000 classrooms. The indicators would then retrofit to the state constructs. So it could be off a little bit. Okay. Does not take into account all 8 state criteria when determining performance levels. Doesn't take in, but it takes the first 6. But again, what you're going to see could be a little bit higher because you're going to include some other things. The other thing is it does not take into account student growth measures. Okay, so in that case, it might go down a little bit. In some cases, at least on distinguished, right? Because isn't student growth measures the only one that could actually go down would be distinguished? If you're proficient, you can't go down to basic. It's only the distinguished folks. And the other thing is just, I say that almost tongue in cheek, it's just about the instruction. Okay. All right. So I think that's, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to jump forward a little bit and go to, let's go to this one right here. In your packets, if you grab this one, you've got the STAR, and you can refer back and forth a little bit just to kind of even check it for us. But this is broken out. We were able to, based on the information on the pages following, like Danielson, how does Danielson align with the at a glance and then as a crosswalk with the state, Danielson, and then STAR? And then it's Marzano, crosswalk. And on the front page, it talks about what these codes mean. Like S1 would be skills 1. It's just number 1 on the STAR protocol. And so what you have here is on Marzano, you've got it tracked to at a glance, which a lot of you have access to, and then a crosswalk over here, and then 5D the same thing. What we're going to do now is look at the data on these. Criteria number 1. You'll see criteria number 1 on the state reform is the same one as right here. Criteria 1, centering instruction on high expectations for student achievement. Danielson has 3 descriptors. I tried to use a neutral term here rather than components or indicators or something. Marzano has 4 descriptors. Cell has 5 descriptors. So as you look at these, there's different numbers of these. Now, you will use each one of those to make a determination on criteria number 1. And the key word in the state legislation is expectations. I don't know if all of you have seen those or not, but. So when you look at this, Danielson defines criteria number 1 with this idea of purpose and collaboration. If you're going to be distinguished here, it's going to be because you're making the purpose of the lesson really clear. You are telling kids what they're going to do today, what it looks like and how they're going to get there, and why it's important. And then you're going to have the kids talk about it with each other. Do they know what they're going to do today, and do they know why it's important? Does that make sense? It's the purpose is clear and the kids collaborate. If you just have the objective on the board and you tell the kids what they're doing today, that's not distinguished on Danielson, right? So as we get into that, you can see that there's a little bit of change here on Marzano. He's really clear that it's about purpose of the lesson, defined the same way, but it's about the environment. It's not really about the kids talking to each other, it's about the environment. And then 5D is about purpose and collaboration again, and those match up really well. Well, the common indicators for the STAR protocol that line up, that are overwhelming on this one, would be 4, 10, 11, and 14. Does that make sense? 4 is about the objective of the lesson, telling the kids exactly, well, let's just read a couple of these, heck. Because I want you to really get a sense of how it can, okay, so 4 on the framework here is aligns lesson with common core state standards, goals, and targets. Assures students are aware of the lesson objectives. Ask students to explain the lesson objectives and purpose to one another. Do you hear that? It's about the collaboration. It's about the objective and the collaboration. Assure students know how to meet that. So on and on and on. It's about the objective. 10, links instructional objective and purpose to student interest. Make a meaningful personal cultural connection. Like why do we want to do this? Number 11, students making a personal connection. Express lesson relevance in their own words, 11D. And then of course number 14 is, all of these are about the kids talking to each other. So that's how this is all going to work. I think you can check all those a little bit later. I just wanted you to see, how and why. So on expectations, our crosswalk is going to be on K4, it's going to be on 10, it's going to be 4, 10, 11, and 14. And we arrange those into a common construct and then say, what percentage of the teachers are doing that? Does that whole logic make sense? You're okay with that? Okay. So how are the teachers doing? Now we have 3 data sets here. You might want to even jot some notes. I kind of wish, I think I kind of blew it. I should have given you these slides, but you can get access to them if you want them. But for now, you might want to just jot some things down on here. But we have 3 data sets. One is all the way from 2004 to 2012, which is the main one we're going to look at. But, and then we broke it out to, how about all the observations we've done since August of last year? Like, since all of a sudden TPEP was going on and people started paying attention and doing some stuff, is there a difference between that data set and our total data set? That's what we were sort of interested in. So we're actually going to look at this one, and we're going to look at this one. Okay. All right, so here we go. Track with me on expectations. In the state of Washington, if it was implemented right now, our team is actually really good at doing observation. We're really good at interpreting these things. This is actually really accurate with high degree of reliability, and it correlates with student achievement. But within criteria 1, expectations, the purpose and objective really clear. At this point, if it was game on, we have 15% of the teachers that had performed or we observed would have been at the distinguished level, 24 at proficient, 22 at basic, and 40 at unsatisfactory. So I'm going to stop for a second. I'll let you kind of digest a couple of different documents and also chat with each other. Like, what's your first response to that, just so far? Chat with each other about that. That's expectations. Are you, and talk about whether you're surprised by that or not. Okay. Okay, so let's come on back. So on this one, when I saw this, we're not trying to have an opinion about it or not. It's just like, that's what it is. And I have to tell you, it's pretty accurate. Now, normally how we look at the STAR data, now keep in mind, this might go down because of criteria 7 and 8. And because of student growth data or something, this might go down. Or that might go down because of student growth data, we don't know. Now, normally when we look at this, we combine the 3s and 4s over here and these over here. And I did that originally, and I thought, actually, there's something else that we can't answer here. This is not necessarily bad. We just don't know right now. And we're actually thinking about, can we go back in the database and get teacher names and years of experience? If these are 5-year veteran teachers and it's their second time this has happened for them, probably bad. right? But as first-year teachers, this is actually, the system is set up that this is okay. So I think we want to be careful about this and say, not that, oh, we only have this number of teachers that are actually on track. We don't know about this, which is unfortunate. But we do know this and we know this. So as we go through this, this is actually something to think about. Okay, next one. Instruction, which is probably pretty important, happening in the classroom. Probably about 33% of the teachers unsatisfactory related to instruction. Okay, remember that one was about, what was that one? Let's just double check real quick. Remember that was 7, 8, 9, and 14? Higher level questions, kids explaining their thinking, give me some metacognition here, and talk to your neighbor. I'll tell you what we do see a lot of. Higher level questions, hands go up, call on 1 or 2 kids, or answer it yourself. The number of teachers that answer their own really good question, pretty high. You know what? And just, when you get out there and start looking for it, it's like, okay. And so what's cool about this is it's not an issue if teachers don't know how to ask higher level questions. It's that it's a processing of those questions. To be successful on this and also Common Core, the kids better be talking a lot to each other. That's reflected in the rubrics, it's reflected here. And they would be unsatisfactory because only a couple of kids, not very many kids are answering the questions. You could have great questions, probing responses, and everything else, but if it's 4 kids out of 28, you're at this end. Okay. All right, so instruction. Differentiation. How often are we really making decisions based on data and differentiation? And I got to tell you, man, this is like the poster child key word for what we changed in 1993. Remember, we changed the philosophy, psychology, and the centricity. Students in a classroom. Every teacher, a cognitive scientist, making decisions in the classroom. In this case, 46% of the classrooms are unsatisfactory. Now, just to kind of let you go on your emotions a little bit on this, I'm going to show you, we can actually calculate all 6 altogether, like what it's going to look like altogether on this. But still, 11% over here and 21% here. Differentiation. Content knowledge. This, and what's that made up of? We can actually look at that. Oh, wow, we know what we're talking about. We don't have any errors in what we're saying. The objective is really clear. We're telling kids why it's important, telling some personal stories around it. The kids are telling us why they think it's important. And again, the reason I burned so much time earlier on this crosswalk thing is because it's tight. It's really this is really what people see. And when you read through the framework, when you read through these things, you'll realize why we can say whether we saw them or not. Like think about number 10, teacher shares a personal story. Do you think you could observe that if it happened? You can see it. These are really observable things. So, okay, next. The learning environment. Actually, the learning environment is actually pretty strong here. 13 and 14, looking better over here. Not very many people unsatisfactory. Assessment. Assessment's actually pretty strong. I was delighted to see that as being kind of as getting in all this work from the assessment side. Still, 29% on the unsatisfactory side. We don't know what to say about that, but we can say something. Oh, sorry, yeah, environment. Oh yeah, sorry about that. So it's about that learning environment. And again, you can read through 13 and 14. And by the way, at least it's got to be 2/3 of the things on the descriptors, the strategies on the STAR under number 14 come right out of Common Core state standards about kids communicating effectively, active listening, extending another student's discussion. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
You said we'll get these slides.
Well, if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, I'll send it to you.
Just email you.
Yeah, just email it. I think there's my card in there. Okay, so assessment. Now, this is all of them all together. Now, this is now when you click on the component level inside the evaluation, and you're saying, well, the teacher did this on this component, this component, this component. To some extent, that obviously matters, but it doesn't matter in the teacher's overall evaluation. It's not until you click on criteria that it matters, and it self-calculates from that point. You get 29 or more points, you're distinguished out of 32. So the criteria level is important. So what this is looking at is, if all we had, and really this is all we have related to instruction, because 7 and 8 actually have to do with something else. But if those scored distinguished, if these were, think about this, if these were this, but 7 and 8 were distinguished, it would bring it up a little bit, right? So this could change a little bit, so I just want it as a disclaimer. But at this point, on the instructional side, this is what we have seen. About a third of the classrooms unsatisfactory. Now this is a workload issue for somebody, right? If that's true, going forward. Now I'm going to move to a different data set. And I'm going to go through these quickly because I just want to get to the end of it. This is now in the last 18 months. And just tell you, right, it's a little higher. It's kind of interesting to me that when we said you have to pass WASL to graduate, how scores jumped up a little. And all of a sudden when we say, well, this was really going to happen, and we've seen it jump a little bit across the state. But you won't remember probably all these others, but the main one I want to get to, so instruction, still 33%, differentiation 30, kind of a pattern there. Environment's looking actually really good now. Assessment, pretty darn strong, once again. And this is the one I wanted you to see, because I would say that this is probably the most accurate. I like using the other database because it's 25,000 observations. Are you kidding me? And we survived it. But this is probably the one that's like really pretty accurate with where we're at as a state when we come out. And so I would say that it's really safe to say that between 25 and a quarter and a third of the teachers are probably not as prepared for the system as we and they want to be. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to leave that slide, give you a chance, 1 minute to chat with each other about all this. This is the last 18 months, and I think this really does represent really well. About 50% right here and about 25% here. We don't know what that means. See if you can explain that to each other, just to make sure we're clear about this before we wrap up. We're going to need to wrap things up here. So kind of in summary on this, I think that we just need to be ready for the emotion behind this, and also to understand kind of where we're at. If I was a principal and I was looking at my staff and I've got 20 people and I look and think, well, I have 5 of them that are looking like they're going to be unsatisfactory. Am I doing this right? I mean, it's like kind of wondering where you're at in the universe on this thing. And then also as a teacher, just the emotion around, of course we all want to be distinguished, but we really do need to have support around that. The thing that I've realized with instruction is, and a lot of you have heard me use this term, we have to create common language, and we have to start, oops, where is it? Sorry, okay. We have to start treating instruction as pedagogical habits rather than skills. The thing is a lot of people are going to move forward over the next 10 years or 5 years saying, teacher, I want to help you. You're not very good at higher level questions apparently. You're not doing very well on criteria number 2. So I'm going to send you off to a training. The thing is most teachers actually already know how to do things in number 7. They're just not in a habit of doing it. It's really, which I think is really promising. As we have seen teachers across the state approach instruction from a habits standpoint rather than a skills standpoint, they start to grow. And the other thing that I find really promising in all this that I think I'll finish with is this might not be as complicated as it sounds, because really, if I could take care of my evaluation criteria 1 and 4 if I just made sure that the purpose of the lesson was clear and I was having kids talk about it. It's actually pretty amazing. I can actually be proficient or distinguished just by doing those 2 things. Now I can read through a whole bunch of pages of rubrics and wonder what the difference between columns is. Or I could just say, I'm going to make sure that I tell the kids what we're going to do, why it's important, and ask them to say the same thing. Why do you think it's important? And I'm going to tell them why I think it's important. So, and so this language is actually designed to be like just simple, observable kinds of things. If this helps you along the way, I would love to have you, use that. Star Online is available for folks if that helps you. It's a free tool for you guys, and it has that in there. It has lesson planners and all kinds of stuff. But our big thing is we see teachers changing practice if people will approach it as a habit rather than a skill. And I think you can also, and the other thing too is criteria 3 and 5 are essentially about relationships. It's about you knowing your kids really well. And if you just did 13, 14, and 15, focused on that, you have 2 more criteria they're taking. In fact, we have decided as a Burke group that there are only 3 things the state's looking for. Purpose and high expectations, which is 4, 10, 11, and 14. Questioning and discussion, which is 7, 8, 9, and 14. and environment and differentiation, which is 13, 14, and 15. 14 happens to be in every one of those. And that'd be maybe a pretty interesting place to start for teachers if they wanted to be distinguished. Just looking at 14, and you kind of look at it and go, wow, that's the same thing we were doing in our AVID training, same thing we're doing in our GLAD training, same thing we're doing in our Common Core training. And it's really all aligned. It's pretty cool. So anyway, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that this helps you kind of just temper your thinking around it and that kind of thing. If you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, please email me. I think my card's in there. Secretary put that in there. If you want another packet for a friend, I brought a couple of extras. Thank you, guys. Take care.